Heyo, busy brain. Welcome to the Busy Brained Saint podcast, where faith meets focus. I'm Kamden Hainsworth, an expert ADHD coach, here to help you understand your mind with confidence. God knows your brain perfectly, so let's explore that divine design together and discover just how fulfilling your life can be, living with God and ADHD. Hello, you made it. I'm so happy that you are here. My brain is busy and my heart is full. Today's podcast episode is titled, God Made You a-Flutter, and called it good, with special guest Aubrey Chavez. It was a number of years ago when I discovered the Faith Matters podcast. My husband actually sent me a particular episode that he thought I would think was interesting, and he was certainly right. I love the Faith Matters podcast. Their whole mission is to help and seek for a space of expansive, thoughtful conversations within the context of the restored gospel. And Aubrey and her husband, Tim, hosts the podcast on Faith Matters weekly. In addition to that, Aubrey has a Bachelor of Arts from Utah State University in elementary education. She taught actually here in Springville. And she and her husband, Tim, were high school sweethearts, and now they are parents to 4 amazing children, ages 8 to 17. You're going to get to know Aubrey a little bit more in addition to her ADHD story. I love her. I think she is one of the most down-to-earth, kind humans, and I feel it's such a gift to have been able to spend an hour with her and for the interactions that we have had over the years. So let's hop right in. Thanks for being here and enjoy. Aubrey, what a absolute blessing to have you on. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, thank you, Kamden. I've been looking forward to this for weeks.
Good.
So I'm excited to be here with you.
Why don't we get talking just a little bit about your own diagnosis? It was a late diagnosis, and ADHD in your family, neurodivergence in your family.
Yeah. So it wasn't even on my radar actually until I was at lunch with a friend, and she had just turned 50 and mentioned that she just got diagnosed. And she's like, I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was something about like, if it's in your family, like just the chances that it's in your now family are just so high. And like, I don't remember anything else from that lunch. I thought, I know my dad has ADHD and we always have, and he's never really treated it, but it's lovable, and he's in his 60s now. And so it just it is what it is. And it's just who he is. And it never occurred to me that maybe he's not the only one, because he has what looks like ADHD to me.
Right.
I went to school for elementary education and taught school, and what I learned about ADHD was that you could walk into a classroom and pick out the 3 boys in the back, who are bouncing off the walls, and that is my dad.
Yep.
Like he is that in a 60-year-old body. And so it was the first time that it had crossed my mind that maybe it doesn't always look like that, because I know this friend, and it was like blowing my mind that she doesn't seem anything like what I thought, and how could that be ADHD? And so I started looking into it and thought, maybe this is my son. Like, I really started wondering if my son has this, because he also has never been hyperactive. He's not even in like what people always tell you your little boys are going to be like.
Sure.
Like, he just has always been, he does hyper focus. Like, he'll disappear for hours working on a project, and he's done that since he was 4 years old. And so anyway, I wondered, and I didn't really know, it didn't seem like a perfect fit, but the more I read about him and sort of these other ways that ADHD can look, the more I was like, oh my gosh, this is me.
Yeah.
Like, this is so me. And I kind of sat with that for a few months. Like, just everything I read just felt like spot on. And I felt a little disturbed, but also there was like some relief about recognizing that a lot of the hardest things in my life started to make a little bit of sense. And so that's when I kind of decided I wanted to find out from a doctor if I could be diagnosed. And I think maybe a little part of me was hoping they'd be like, no, I don't know. This is just your personality.
Of course, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. And I was ready to give my son the superpowers speech. Like, I was on board with like, this is a good thing. But I definitely recognized that I had like some deep, deep shame when I thought about it, like trying it on for myself. And so, but I was struggling with Faith Matters, actually. I was really having a hard time. I was just frustrated with myself that we'd been doing the podcast for years. Mm-hmm. And literally every week, Kamden, I'd be like, this is the week I'm going to get ahead. Like, I'm going to do the next week's episode right now.
Yeah. This will get ahead
and
mentality.
For years.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. And every week I was positive, like, this week I'm going to do it. And it was like a clean slate. And I like could not make it happen.
Yeah.
And I definitely couldn't stick with it if I did get it to happen, once or twice. And so I decided to go in and do some testing and talk to a psychiatrist. And there was something kind of validating about having a conversation and being asked every question that seemed like very personal and sort of like a confession. Like, it was kind of a weird experience, actually, just like as she ticked down the list that.
How do you know this about me? Why do you know this?
Yes,
this is a little bit too personal. This is a little bit, I thought I could hide. I thought I was doing pretty good. Yeah.
Or that it was just me. Like, I'm not even sure it would have occurred to me to tell her these things.
This is
so
just
it was
who
just
I am.
like,
Yeah.
it was weird. Yeah. It was a weird experience. And it was weird to have someone else connect so many dots that I didn't recognize maybe could be connected.
Yeah.
And so I was actually at a retreat that Thomas McConkie was leading.
Yeah.
And
if you guys don't know Thomas McConkie, he's a meditation guru and mindfulness guru. So this is really interesting for the community at large here with ADHD, that meditation and mindfulness is so important for us. And yet, go ahead. I'm imagining what you're going to say right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
Like, I cannot do this. Like, I was so game for the lecture parts, and I think I've just kind of learned over the years how to pay attention, and it means that I'm writing. Like, it looks like I'm taking notes, and maybe I'm kind of taking notes, but it's just like one more thing to be
the other
doing.
bugs busy.
But
Yes.
But I can totally lock in that way. But every time we did the actual practice, like, he'd set it up and he'd talk about it, and then as soon as we went into these stillness moments, I just felt like it was like torture. Like, I felt like a pinball in a very small box. There's just like, freaking out. And it was so frustrating. And I think it was a 3-day retreat. And I felt so much shame that I wasn't settling in. Like, I could feel that other people were like having this experience, and I felt like a trapped cat, It was just so hard. And it was actually during the lunch on the second day where I'm realizing I'm trying to like muscle myself into these stillness moments. And so we're having this lunch break, and I was in this little courtyard by myself, and the doctor called and said, we've been looking at your testing and wanted to let you know that these results are consistent with an ADHD diagnosis. And I felt like full body, just like shame. Like, I felt like what she said was like, yeah, these things are so hard for you. They're literally, your brain is disordered. Like, your brain is literally disordered. It's like, you're so bad at this that there's a name for it. And I felt devastated. Like, even though I think I expected it, I just felt so bad. And probably because I was in the middle of this,
it was compounded. Yeah, you were. Yes, compounded by so many layers in that situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that word just was so loud. Like, I just kept hearing that over and over. Like, your brain is disordered. But the most amazing, like, sweetest thing happened in that, like, literally in that moment. And I feel like it was just this little miracle to, like, kind of reset me right in that instance. So I'm on the phone, and we're in Salt Lake City, and it's just kind of like this little park, and just out of the clear blue sky, this flock of pigeons comes down into the courtyard, and there must have been like 50, I don't know, there were so many, and they were landing like all around me, and it was so loud, like they were all flying. Wow. And I remember, like, it was literally like blowing my hair. Wow. Like, it was hard to hear her on the phone. The birds are just like everywhere, and doing bird things. And as soon as I hung up the phone, they kind of lifted off, and they were gone again, and it was quiet. And I just like had the most, like, the clearest understanding that the nature of the pigeons, the nature of the birds, is to be all a-Flutter. Yeah. Like, it was chaos. Yeah. It was just like, there were wings, and they were making their little bird sounds, and they were all flying in different directions. And it just felt like they're good. Like, that's good. They're not supposed to settle down and like be.
They're not disordered birds.
They're not disordered birds. Yes. And it was like the deepest heart understanding that, like, the same energy that animates these birds is animating me, and it's okay. Like, God can work with that. And it just felt like, even though I had a lot of feelings, it was just kind of this reset. Like, I don't know how to do this yet, but I know God can work with it. And the sweetest part of this story is that when we went back in, Thomas led everyone on an outside meditation, and he talked about kind of almost the exact same thing, that like, look at the birds. And I mean, he was talking about look at the sidewalk and look at the trees, but he mentioned specifically look at the birds and notice their energy. And that's all I was thinking about anyway. And it just felt like this capstone to a really sweet moment of inspiration. And I'm not sure I've ever had an experience like that. Wow. Through the rest of my life. And so I think that kind of set me on this trajectory to like trust that there's something good here. And where I think I was ready to turn down this road of like complete shame and like wanting to erase this part of myself, it felt like even though it is not working right now, and like even though I don't know how to do it yet, I can trust that there's something good about this nature. Like that this isn't a broken thing that God is trying to fix. It's not a broken thing, and God is working with it.
That's right.
And so that was like the beginning of something a lot more fruitful than kind of where my head was at the beginning.
Thank you.
But it was intense. Like that's
huge. Really
I think
huge.
I think there have been a lot of like, there's the physical things to figure out, but I think I have really had to work through sort of the emotional feelings around like something that feels specific to me that I can't, like I want to just like be part of the crowd. And Tim is the so opposite of ADHD that like I've had to just let go of like, my goal is not to be him.
Well, and
like we have different
that's
natures.
where the struggle is, right? It's disordered according to who and based upon what as the typical or the norm, right? That's where that word is coming up. And even the word of neurodivergent, versus, well, then what is neurotypical, and who is to say that this is typical? It was society as a whole, North American society or European or whatever it might be, that distinguished what is typical or most often versus not. And I hear this conversion that, while the world might say you are different, to me, you are just mine, right?
That's beautiful.
I made you. I know exactly what your brain was made for. And it might be kind of difficult to pay bills on time or to, get the dishes done or to get a couple weeks ahead or for the podcast. But in my world, that's really not the indicator. That's not what's most important to me. And I love, almost that instantaneous, and I'm sure that you're still working through things, but that instantaneous conversion of his call to bring Aubrey, who you are, to his work.
Yeah, I love how you put that. I think it was just a shift that like my intention going forward was not going to be to fix or erase this, but to work with it. And I think in that moment, I definitely like it was going to go either way. And I think it's just been helpful to reframe it that way for me. Like I have a lot more energy when it doesn't feel like I'm trying to root out something that feels so inherent.
Okay, so then what has some of that work been for you?
I think the most productive things have been about just like letting go of the resistance. Like I think I was trying to remember like the earliest memory I have of like feeling corrected or like feeling shame about whatever this is that I am. And like one of the very first things that popped into my head was like the tortoise and the hare. And just this like orientation that like slower is better, like slow and steady and deliberate and careful and use your best handwriting. Like those there's just this understanding, I think, from like before I have real memories that that's the right way. And I think that this other way, like working in fits and starts in like bursts and rests and bursts and rests, like that totally works. It does. And I'm not sure that it's slower ever. I think it's slower when I stop myself and try to do it the other way. Like that doesn't work. Working with bursts of energy and rest and trying to like contort my schedule into something that I think looks more like the tortoise.
Where
like that doesn't work.
Where is your deliberateness, though? I hear it, actually, and this is the coach in me, but I'm hearing you making a deliberate decision to choose the hair, to choose that energy. And I wonder if that is the slowing down, is the pause to deliberately honor your natural rhythm instead of not pausing and just constantly trying to fit yourself into the tortoise way of life.
Totally. Yeah.
And that is a distinction that I think is also really important, because I bet there have been some moments in your life where having the choice to deliberately slow down and be present with a child that's crying, or that, actually has served you.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe your more natural hair, your faster nature would have missed that, or wouldn't have been as aligned with who you are as a person if it was just going off of its natural tendency. But I'm hearing that there was a pause, there is a choice, and that you're no longer dismissing it as better or worse, but as I get to choose that my natural rhythm is good, and is good most of the time. What's coming up?
Totally. I love that you're pushing this a little bit, because like the image that's coming to mind is like water flowing. And I think that I've been surprised that where I feel the most scatterbrained and like the most, like where I feel the most out of control and the most rushed is when I'm trying to like stop up the water completely. And I think if I can just go with this what feels like this flow of energy, then I think it just brings down the anxiousness about it. And I think I just wrapped my energy in so much anxiousness that I didn't have time to even notice if a kid was struggling, because it was just all anxiety about what I thought I should be doing.
Yeah.
And I think when I've completely let that go, it's just a more natural, it's able to flow more naturally. And so I can just completely embrace that I'm going to fold laundry for 7 minutes, and then I'm going to leave it, and it's going to be out 3 hours later, and I'm going to circle back around to it. And I think before, like, I have this idea that like the right way is to complete this job, like to finish it right now, and then I can move on to the next thing. And like, that makes me a really like hard mom.
Yes.
Like it makes me a rude mom. It makes me like
angsty,
not able to just be present at all. I'm the opposite of present, because I'm trying so hard to like muscle myself into this thing that doesn't feel natural. And I've just felt like if I can let go of the anxiety part, the regular like maybe quicker energy is totally not a problem. No. Like sometimes it's a problem. Usually it's not a problem.
That's right.
Usually it just kind of works. And I think it's the resistance that has created so much of the anxiety that is what takes me out of the moment. And so like
you trust yourself now.
That's been the first. That's been number one. Yes.
You trust yourself that the energy you have isn't wrong, like you said at the beginning.
Yes.
And in fact, it's what brings more joy and is more aligned and is more effective and actually probably more efficient, because then you're not having to, you have more capacity, you have more energy, ability, because you're spending less time on beating yourself up and telling yourself that you're doing something wrong. I love where this is going. I'm going to interject here just for a second to talk to you about ADHD coaching. I would love to be able to coach you. ADHD coaching was something I was introduced to about 6 years ago in the midst of finding my own ADHD diagnosis. It has changed my life. And I am so lucky that the thing that changed my life the most has now become the thing that brings me the most joy, is to help other people like you understand their brain in a way that is long lasting, to be able to love on yourself and have that self-acceptance, but also learn to stretch yourself into new territories, to exercise some new muscles that maybe weren't naturally how you were born or naturally how your brain works. That's what a goal is, right? A goal is essentially, I have these natural ways of going through life, and I see something that I'd like to become. And so bridging that gap between where you are and where you'd like to become. For a lot of us, that's simply getting places on time, feeling like we have an organized home, improving our relationships, and big goals. And I'm here for all of it. I work with students, teens, adults, older adults, and everything in between. And it's been a joy to see how so many of the techniques and tools that I've developed and being mentored by many different experts, as well as an official ADHD certification, has not only helped and blessed my life, but allows me to serve you all better. So if this is something that you're interested in learning more about, you can go to my website, KamdenADHDcoaching.com, and it's all there. You can find more podcast episodes there. You can find more about one-on-one coaching and Mindful, my small group coaching. It's all there. So you're always welcome as well to email me, info@KamdenADHDcoaching.com, if you have any further questions or anything that you'd like to discuss about ADHD. Let's get back into this amazing podcast.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
And I think that maybe that kind of brings us to like just understanding dopamine more generally. I think the other huge epiphany over these last couple of years has been that I really thought that dopamine was the spirit. And maybe the spirit works through dopamine. I don't know. But I think the problem with thinking about the spirit as a neurotransmitter.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up. Okay, keep going.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I think like I think God maybe works through our bodies and our hormones, but I think the way I thought about it, dopamine was super problematic. Like I thought that if dopamine was bottomed out, that like I have offended the spirit, like I have lost the spirit, like something has gone wrong. So I instantly feel a lot of guilt and shame and anxiety. And I think starting to recognize and be able to understand what it feels like to have dopamine in a healthy place and what it feels like to feel bottomed out and not moralize that has been the most empowering thing, because then when I feel bad, I don't feel bad about myself. It's just like, okay, what can I do to get dopamine moving? Like how can I get some dopamine flowing in my body, as opposed to just like feeling like it must be because I don't know. And then I'm like, my brain is searching for reasons to feel bad about myself. And like, that works. Like you'll think of a handful of things.
Yeah, that's
if
called
like
being imperfect
you ask
beings,
for it.
Right? Yeah. I mean,
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, and so it's just this unvirtuous cycle. Like it just, you feel lower and lower. And I think starting to understand what it feels like to have some healthy dopamine means that like I can recognize when it's not a good day to try to get through my inbox, because it genuinely changes. Like sometimes I feel great and like those are days that I can fly through texts and emails. And if I am just feeling all of the sluggish feelings of being without dopamine, like that's not the day to try to muscle through those texts. Yes, everything's harder and like so sluggish, and I feel bad about it all the way. And it has just been life-changing to recognize the difference and to not think that all of those signals are coming from God. And like that of all things, I would get a diagnosis just to like understand that a little bit better, because I think I was always on such a roller coaster. And I think in sort of this constant state of guilt, because I felt like I did something wrong. And I didn't know that like that feeling is just what it feels like to be, for dopamine to be very, very low.
Yeah.
Yes. But like, and so instead of finding spiritual ways, like thinking I needed to go to the temple more or pray more or read scriptures more and try to like fix it through the spirit, it was like, I think I need to go outside, or I need to like think of the next fun thing. Like what sounds fun about this cleaning project that I need to do? And like that lights a spark. And suddenly I'm like, everything's flowing again and it feels okay. And that's been a lot more productive than trying. Yes. And yes, like it's just had such better fruits than than wrestling with what I thought was the spirit always telling me I was doing something wrong or rewarding me.
Yeah. What do you feel then that has shifted with you and or maybe not, but of the nature of God in this situation? So then what is the nature of God as God approaches you on a low dopamine day that Aubrey 2.0 now understands about herself?
Well, I mean, you are like absolutely pinpointing like where I am in this kind of like spiritual journey, because I think like what it's revealed is that I've totally connected God to productivity. And it's been like a painful and really important like reorientation to believe that God thinks I can rest, like wants me to rest. And I think that's like the most uncomfortable thing. Like that's really, really hard. It feels like the last thing that I can think through, but it's hard to feel it in my body. And just a few weeks ago, we talked to the Sabies, Sarah and Josh Sabie, on the Faith Matters podcast, and they read their version of the story of Jonah. And this has like been on my mind ever since. And I think it's part of the piece of this answer for me. And they talk about Jonah and the whale, but they spend a lot of time on Jonah in the shade. So if you remember, like after he's out of the fish and he goes up into the mountains and he's resting, and God gives him this little plant and it provides shade, and he's like so grateful and he falls asleep. And in the Sarah and Josh's version, they say, and Jonah slept and God was so proud of Jonah. Like, I went back to see, like, is there a verse that there, and there's not really, but like, I feel that, like, I think what I can feel God pulling me toward now is trust that like rest is good. And like sometimes those low dopamine days are a call to rest. It's like a call to not do the email.
I was totally going to insert myself because I thought it was really interesting that initially you said, think of something fun that we're going to clean or, get up and go for a walk. And I'm thinking, where's her nap in that menu of options, And so this reveals your work, right? And the good news is it reveals the work of 99% of my clientele that are active members of the church. And we are pioneer stock. Okay. We are gritty. We are hold to the rod. We are, push the hand cart type of people. This is what's in our blood. And that's a whole nother, segment of this. But now we aren't there. We're not pushing the hand carts anymore. And what is the work that God wants for us is what I'm hearing you say. Sometimes that requires some rest so that we can actually perform these tasks that require a little bit more smoothness in our executive function. Our kids aren't out wildly playing on the plains anymore, and so a lot of the time and attention we have is a lot more, I don't know, what am I saying? It's right in front of our face. It's within our homes. It's a little bit more detail oriented, which as someone with ADHD, it requires capacity. And so rest takes on a whole new role. Yeah. So I wanted to, you did it for yourself, but I was noticing how your brain was naturally bringing a remedy to the low dopamine days as go get more instead of rest up, fill your tank, and then go out. Yeah. So that's beautiful.
So true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And both are needed.
And even then and I think just having the language of a chemical messenger is so like that already is just so useful to be able to name it something that isn't like so, it's not like such an obvious connection to some morality. Like because I think you're right. Like it is in our blood, like this idea that you're going to endure and sacrifice and push through. And like, that's like so deep inside me. And I think it's so helpful to just say, we're not talking about values. We're just talking about chemicals. Yes. And like, this is what is happening in my body. And like, I like the idea that I can totally trust it, that like, if rest is what my body needs, then like, it's good. Yeah. And if I feel a lot of energy, then like, trust that's going somewhere really good. Uh-huh. And just like, that feels like the constant work, just really, really trying to let go of the resistance either way.
Has there been a shift within your home with having to get to know that version of you as a wife, as a mother, as an individual? Or do you feel like it's been a pretty natural
good question
unfolding?
I think at home, that's where the ADHD things work best. Like there isn't really a schedule for home things, and I mean, I think it has changed a little bit as our kids get older. Our oldest is 17 now, but especially as young kids, like it works to just kind of go with the flow. And, I remember always going to museums and being like, I like going to the museum with the kids by myself, like not with friends or anybody else, because we totally do it in a way that I
Backward.
get
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, yes, like we go to one room, we didn't finish, and now we're upstairs.
Yeah.
And like, that feels so good to me. I love just like seeing what looks interesting, and we might miss things, and we don't do the zoo in order. And like, so in a lot of ways, home has like been a place of real acceptance.
Good.
I think that it's been interesting to be having these conversations as our kids get older, and with Tim, because it just feels like things make a lot more sense. So, you know, sometimes I'll catch myself like getting the mail, and then one thing leads to another, and I'm like at the pet store buying crickets. Like it just, and it's funny.
That's also
like,
the nature of motherhood, but also the nature of having ADHD
maybe.
as a mom. Yeah, I'm being serious. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think it's been kind of sweet to just like be able to share that conversation and reality with the family. I'm not sure that it's changed the pace of our lives very much, but it has felt like a place to practice just complete acceptance. Like sometimes it's kind of funny. Also, sometimes it's kind of fun. And just, I think it's shown more light on all of the variety of personalities in our family. And like, we are just going to do our jobs differently. And I've liked kind of like playing that out at home, where it just feels like there's a lot of flexibility.
I imagine the permission that this is giving to your children to even if you don't think that it's been so deliberate of a change, I have to believe that just based upon the emotion that you're bringing to this podcast, there has been significant shifts. And lucky for you, most of your kids are at an age now that they're remembering their mom like this. They're remembering
I hope so.
Their mom as fully accepting her brain, her rhythm, and what permission that gives them to honor their own brain and rhythm. And probably the challenges of it too, you know, like, mom's binge reading the last 6 chapters of the book, and that's how she does it. Isn't she amazing? She leverages her dopamine. She leverages her procrastination and, you know, whatever it might be. Isn't that so cool?
I just can't tell you how much I love that. Like, yeah, that would be such an affirmation, because it feels like kind of a mess sometimes. But I agree. Like, I think watching our parents grow is so much more powerful than watching them do anything perfectly. So I love that idea.
Good. Yeah, I hope that for all of us, and there's only one place that we can actually start, and that's by having, you know, developing that self-acceptance and then trying it out, like trying the great experiment of living differently, of living more wholly, WHOL, you know, more wholly to the rhythm that God gave us, and then finding where our choice is. And I think, like, I want to talk about maybe some observations that I've made with you hosting the Faith Matters podcast. But I also want to also just point out that, you know, Tim seems like a pretty good partner in this role. Yeah. And maybe, you know, his challenges with OCD may play into the empathy that he has. And I think he's a relatively empathetic person anyway. But that if you're listening to this podcast, understand that we don't get to choose how other people, you know, view us. And so your listeners, your experience might be more crunchy, might need a little bit more convincing if you have a spouse that's a lot more rigid on what they believe the home should look like, and might need a little bit more convincing and time to lean into a shift. But we know that you're good. And I hope that you're hearing Aubrey's experience today, and that you can hear your own words in that God knows that you are good, and he will always inspire us to improve. That's repentance, right? And to change and to develop, because God cares about us, and our brains are purposeful.
Oh, can I just add, Kamden, because this is such an interesting point you're bringing up. I've also just noticed, like, I think this is part of why what you're doing is so powerful and important, because I think the more I felt like that shame healed, like the more I was able to just have been able to really accept what this is, the less defensive I feel about the whole thing. And like, I think I created a lot of conflict because I brought that energy to the table, because I felt so much shame. Mm-hmm. And I think the more I've been able to feel peaceful about this way that I am, the more I bring that energy. And like, I think that even when it's not something articulated, I think we reflect that energy in each other. And so when you come to the table with complete openness because there's peace about who you are, then you can ask for help or apologize or like come up with something creative together. And it feels like a completely different project than just like what I think I was doing before, which is I want you to validate that I'm good. And so anything that didn't feel like validation was totally a threat. And that creates this feeling of conflict, whether or not we're talking about it.
Yeah, that is the work. Yeah, that's exactly right. When we start with self and can find self and can see how beautiful self is, then everything else falls into place. There's so much clarity. That is difficult work. I applaud you. Like that work isn't, my mentor always says, this isn't for everybody. This is like getting into the deepest, darkest, but it is so fulfilling. And I have found that as well. I'd have to share that my daughters each got a silver coin from their great grandma for Christmas. Oh. And we were at my in-laws' home, and they all were in these cute little bags, and I had two of them. My husband handed to me, my 4-year-olds and my highly ADHD 12-year-olds. Okay, so I had both of these, and I let my 4-year-old hold one in her car seat, and I put the other one in the back of the car. Well, somewhere in the back of the car seat, somewhere between getting out of the car and into our house, the fourth one disappeared. It just disappeared. And I was thinking to myself, this is where ADHD becomes really difficult because I can't remember. The only thing I remember is being responsible, is that I put it into the back of the car seat and I gave it to my 4-year-old and I watched her bring it inside. But this is where ADHD, where I don't have any recollection of what I did with it after that point. And now it's missing. So was that me? Was that someone else? And I am getting somewhere here. The whole point was, though, I was morally looking at myself. I was so focused on, did I make a mistake? Did I forget something? And that forgetfulness means something about me if I did, instead of, well, this makes sense. I have ADHD. And what I've also learned is that things usually show up. And we just got to be patient. And would you have it that we found it in a pillowcase, yesterday in my daughter's pillowcase. But the point is that when we can start to, just like you said, let go of the judgment and just more look at the neutrality of the situation, even if there's something on the line, right? But a little bit more of that letting go, man, we're saving ourselves so much less anxiety and stress and drama. And what can we do instead of having the drama? We can be more loving and kind and fun and joyful. So I have made some observations. Obviously, I'm a massive fan of the Faith Matters podcast and the foundation and everything. But one of my favorite things to do, and my husband always says, you and Aubrey are made of the same stuff. He's just like, you guys are very similar. And that's like the greatest compliment, honestly.
That's how I feel. I'm so happy you said that.
Very intellectual. And I hope now it's going to sound like that I'm, complimenting myself, which... All right, bring it on.
Go for it.
But the point is I love how your brain makes connections so clearly, and it's almost uncanny how I'm like, she's going to say it. She's going to bring it up. She's going to say it. It is almost the exact same thing that often comes to my brain. And I say this through the ADHD lens, that you don't make the same comments that Tim does. Or I'll often hear these really gracious and wonderful people you're interviewing say, oh, that's a really interesting way to think about it. Or that's a really different perspective, which makes both of you guys so dynamic in that role as the podcast hosts. Absolutely. And I just want to point out, how dull would it be if there was two Tims, right? Or how dull would it be if there was two Aubreys?
Or off the rails. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever it might be.
Yeah.
There is, and we talk a lot about, that yin and that yang, but I think it goes even further that God gave us our brains to be different on purpose. He gave us our genders, or whatever it might be. He gave us so many things to complement each other. And I'm curious about within the podcast itself, if you have seen the impact of ADHD, or how you have seen the impact of ADHD show up the most in that role, especially with all these really dynamic, interesting people you've been able to interview over the years?
Yeah, this is so interesting because it was so much of the impetus. Like it was the thing that was causing the most like problems in my life.
Wow.
And that I felt the most frustration about. And it was just about, like I said, like not only could I not get ahead, I just felt like everything, I always did it like it was an emergency. Like I didn't know we were going to interview this person for a month and a half, and that I knew I had to read a book, you know, in that month and a half. And like all I wanted was to be able to read 20 pages a day. Like I'm going to sit down for 45 minutes. I'm going to read this book and take notes. And I like the number of times, Kamden, that I have like put bookmarks, you know, every 20 pages, put dates, put it on my calendar,
sticky notes,
set alarms, sticky note. Yes. Like I was sure it was about if I could just keep better track of which page I need to be on, which day I would do this. And I just can't. I can't do it like that. And so the more I learned about ADHD, the more that made a little bit of sense. And at some point, I just realized like this is actually part of the podcast that's working. Like I can't read it until the 3 days before the interview.
But what is the advantage of that for you?
Because it is so fresh. I've basically memorized the book, and then I sit down and I'm like, hi, remember in chapter 2?
That.
It's so on my mind. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think I finally realized that and just was like, yeah, there is another way that doesn't seem to be accessible to me. And it does seem to work for other people. I need it to be this fresh.
Yes.
And like the questions feel alive.
Yes.
And I feel like when I have read the book way before the interview, it feels hard to like
the working memory isn't working.
To get it back. Maybe that. Yes.
It's the pulling
it's just
from
not quite as there.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. I so see the passion. Like I love how you said the questions are alive. They're living. They're breathing in the moment because you have breathed them into the present day. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. And this is why I'm saying I really feel like you're leveraging your ADHD for the passion that you bring.
I love that idea.
And I'm not saying that there's not another way. I'm not saying that, you know,
right.
Like, of course, there are other ways to do this. And I think what your point is that why carry around the shame when it's actually extremely effective?
Yes. I really do believe that now. I still want to.
Yes, I know.
The problem is, and Kamden, you can coach me on this. Like, I think the hard thing about that is it does feel like an emergency. And so there's no flexibility in the 72 hours before the interview. So I think if I could like stretch a little bit, if I could grow that muscle and like do it,
I think you will.
Like give myself a week, then there's some flexibility for when, you know, somebody needs to get picked up because they're sick or like, you know, I feel on edge because I have calculated this interview to the minute and like this is what I'm doing for these 3 days.
I think though so I'd like more. That is the pendulum swinging, right? Where it was you had to do it this way, and now you're like, well, I'm just going to fully accept this. And then once we get there, all of a sudden there's so much muscle memory to that it can become flexible. You're not thinking so much about how to do it. It's more like, okay, I'm doing the exact same thing, but now we're doing it in 7 days instead of 5. And so that I love from a coaching perspective why you brought this up, because a lot of the time we have to learn both ways, both sides. That's the all or nothing, right? We have to learn both ways in order for us to find our sweet spot, our Goldilocks zone. And so I actually have great trust in you that it's right around the corner. You will find that because
I love that idea. Yeah.
It
doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah.
The other thing I've noticed over these last couple of years is that and something that I think I always felt shame about is not like sticking to something, you know, like I felt bad that like an interest in January isn't an interest in May. And the story that I told myself was like, I'm flaky or flighty or just like, I don't know. I'm not
wishy-washy, inconsistent. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I felt like the right way is just steadiness, like in 5 years be working on the same thing. And so, but I do feel like this is something that has made the podcast, I don't know, maybe it's why it's been nourishing for me actually, that like, it's sort of conducive to this like totally flowing energy. Like what sparks curiosity and interest in January can't be the same thing in May. Like and so it's been so fun to just be able to say like, this month I'm wildly interested in the Enneagram, and like next month it'll be something complete, like it's Old Testament Genesis stories. Like it can just be so off the wall, and that actually, this is a format where that kind of works. And it doesn't, I think sometimes it's like what you're saying, being all that way can start to be problematic, but I think I just felt so much shame about being that way at all that it's been good practice to just say, I can also trust this energy, like trust that this thing that is super interesting is going to make an interesting episode, or a fruitful episode. And it's okay to just totally follow that energy and read all the books on this topic that sound interesting, and then completely walk away and let it go and move on to something else that is sparking new energy. Yeah. So, but that's, I think that's something I'm starting to feel out, but that I have some new consciousness around the shame that I attached to it.
Yeah, and your contrast of, you are speaking with experts in their field. You are speaking with people that have gone very deep in their life a lot of the time, right? Yeah. And so they are very narrow and deep within their fields. And here you are pulling and illuminating from a variety of things that feel equally as passionate every single time. Yeah. And your brain is saying, I think this might be a problem, because the people that are in that seat right there that are the experts.
They've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah. And so I just want to highlight that the contrast doesn't mean something's wrong either. And I kind of, this phrase of, you've never met a stranger. Like, I bet Aubrey's one of those people that's never met a stranger, that you can understand and talk with and converse with and even get deep with almost any person you run into. And when we bring that type of concept to the Savior, I think of, who is Christ? He is someone who knows each one of us personally and can look us in the eyes and get deep with each one of us, because his knowledge is vast, right? Yeah. And so we're bound by time. We're bound by, where we're going to spend our time in mortality. But man, aren't God's arms very, very wide?
I love that.
His multi-passionate nature is what makes the dimensions and the textures of this universe so enticing and awe-inspiring. And we, as ADHDers, feel more of that multi-passionate nature. That's how we get to know our God, I feel. So I want to pour into you a little bit, that I can see why maybe that contrast is also kind of in your face every time. You're like, dude, you've been 25 years.
Thought about that.
25 years studying the Old Testament, spent 30 years of your life studying women's issues in the church. And you're just like, let's keep going. Let's keep bouncing, Yeah. But we need you. We need you to be passionate in that chair so that we can understand the story deeper. And I mean, you're just such a good person to do it.
That's so kind. Thank you. I really love that. And comparing to the guests is so interesting, because that's a really good, it's a good check. Like, I can see how what they do is so genuinely good. Like, that God is working through them and their singular passion.
Thank goodness.
And I can see, I can see how all things are needed. And that the only problem really is when we really resist what is ours. That just feels intuitively like such a more peaceful place, trusting what comes so naturally, wild curiosity about a single thing, or wild curiosity about 4 things at once.
There's no moral value to either, right?
Yeah.
But the world wants to tell us these things, right? They want to say phrases like the adjectives that you said at the beginning. Well, then if you're not deep and you are wide, then you must not care as much, right? And
exactly.
I want to say that deliberately here, because once again, so many of us with ADHD have heard these things either directly or indirectly, and we take those to mean something about us.
Because it's true too. It's true that there's something so good about depth.
Yes,
and I think that's why it can be tricky, because our brains recognize that. That's totally a gift. But I think I just assumed that the contrast was that I was the opposite. That means that what I am is not a gift.
You were one of the deepest people that we get to observe weekly. I mean, your depth is what makes you great at what you do. And it's one of those contradictions, but it's your depth that makes you awesome. And it's your ability to move your depth from subject to subject and be equally as honest and true, that connects us to the stories of the people you're interviewing. It's so
really
fun.
Is a gift. Thank you for saying that.
Of course. We're finishing up, and I had one last thing I was going to say. Oh, I remembered. You make cakes.
Oh, yay. Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we've talked about motherhood. We've talked about, home life. We've talked about professional life. But can we just highlight that, please?
Oh.
Because this has been
Thank you. I'm
consistent.
so
You make
excited.
cakes. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know everything about you, but I'm like, if this isn't the most ADHD thing, that she is sincerely and incredibly talented at yet another thing. Can we just highlight that? Because we are so much more than just where people see us and assume we are. Talk to us about cakes real
That was
fast.
so nice. I am so excited to talk about cake.
Yeah.
This was therapy for me. Before I knew anything about ADHD, I felt like my soul bursting out of my body. I just needed a creative outlet. And this was a way to be crafty without creating a lot of clutter, because we were living in a little apartment, and so you could just eat the craft when you were done. And I think also I think this is totally an ADHD thing that I didn't recognize my whole life. And that's this extreme scrappiness.
Yes.
I don't want to make any decisions about what the group has to do, but if you will just hand me a box and some duct tape and a screwdriver and some random objects, that is my dream. I just want to
create.
I can totally
There's your arrows.
There's
your arrows coming through, man.
Yes. And that is a cake.
Yeah.
And so I did it sort of in kind of an alternative way. The orders that I would take, I wouldn't do design meetings with clients ever. My rule was sort of, you can give me the flavor, of course, and the theme and the servings, and I will let you know what it will look like.
That's amazing.
Because I just love this idea of just free reign. And I loved walking into a hardware store and finding weird tools and objects that would help me do interesting anti-gravity or towery, just cool stuff with food. And
so you're a cake
it was
artisan.
just a perfect medium. I'm a cake artisan. I like that. Yeah. I really do love to do weird, interesting things. And I loved the container of a theme and a size, and then just letting my brain be creative. And that was actually one of the very first things that came to mind when I was getting diagnosed, and I'm having this conversation with a psychiatrist, and she is talking about hyperfocus. And I realized I have had this thing all my life that I thought was pretty weird, which is I can't tell you if it's been 30 minutes or 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I know this about myself, that I'll stop when I'm baking or decorating especially, and just realize okay, guess the time. What time is it? And it kind of freaks me out that it kind of feels like I've blacked out. I really, really don't know if
minus the rising and the setting of the sun, it would be very hard, because no hunger cues.
How many times do you have to go to the bathroom?
Yes. Nothing. It all just, yeah.
Yes.
That's how I am with DIY. So
really?
Yeah, power tools.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, we should, cakes and power tools that could be next level.
Totally.
But that was one of those things that was it was like a little dopamine hit, actually, to realize that this is a thing that other people experience, and there's nothing, I'm not having a stroke. I really
I'm not
doing
abandoning
this.
my family purposefully. I have literally entered the hyperfocus zone because I am, we have our own creative genius. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, I need to see more photos of your cakes.
Thanks for asking for cakes. That's been my favorite little side hobby.
It's awesome.
So.
Well, that's what keeps the sanity around too. So.
Yeah.
Aubrey, thank you so much. This has been so fun.
Thank you, Kamden. Yeah, thanks for the conversation, but also just for all your mentorship and the things you're doing on your own podcast. It's a gift. I was going to wear my shirt of yours, but it's my birthday in a few days, and I'm literally saving it for my birthday because it's my favorite shirt. So
which one do you have?
I'm a fan. I have brought the loaves.
Oh, yes. It is a good one. It is a good one. You're saving it for your birthday.
I'm saving it for my birthday.
That is the biggest compliment I have ever heard. And happy early birthday.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks again, Aubrey.
All right. Thanks, Kamden.
Bye-bye.
Okay. See ya.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Busy Brained Saint podcast. If you're eager to explore the world of ADHD coaching, make sure to connect with me on Instagram at Kamden_ADHD or visit my website, KamdenADHDcoaching.com. For more LDS-specific ADHD content, don't forget to follow this podcast and join us on Instagram at The Busy Brained Saint. Listen, I'm here to support you on your journey. I cannot wait to have you as a part of our community. Stay engaged, stay inspired, and remember, you're not alone here. Thanks for being a part of the Busy Brained Saint family.